Hello everyone! Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sydney Morgan. If you're new here, make sure you hit the like button, you subscribe so you know when I come out with new videos. On July 15th, 1976, it was just a regular day in Chowchilla, California. A man named Frank Edward, who everybody called Ed, so that's what we'll call him in this story. Ed was a bus driver for the local elementary school. And on this day, Ed was driving 26 children on his bus home from summer school. And these kids were of all ages. They were, I think it was 5 to age 14. But the parents started to worry when they realized that their kids were not being dropped off yet. So after a little bit of time, they really started to panic and they called the police station and they notified them that their kids weren't home. So the police started searching for this bus. And in the meantime, most of the parents kind of camped out at the police station just waiting to hear anything about where their kids were at. Just a few hours later, police actually did locate this school bus. They located it in a rural area, and nobody was on this bus. The kids were nowhere to be found. In the news reports, they said that the police didn't think that when this bus was taken to where it was at, that any children were present, because it was a very dusty road and the windows were open. So if it was a dusty road, the dust would have came through the windows of the bus and kind of settled on the seats, and it did, but there were no like butt imprints like anybody was in there. Now outside of the bus, police noticed there were a lot of different tire tracks that were not made from the bus. So with that, they kind of knew that they were looking for more than one suspect because it showed that there were more than one vehicle. More than 28 hours later, police get a phone call from a security guard at a quarry over 100 miles away saying that they have found and located all 27 passengers of that bus and that they were all alive. Once everybody was brought back to Chowchilla, to the police station, they started to talk to everybody that was on that bus and they found out what had happened. The school bus driver, Ed, had all of his 26 kids in the bus and he was driving to the first stop to drop off the first kid. But in the middle of the road, he noticed a white van was just stopped blocking traffic. So as he approaches this van, he slows down and he notices that off to the side of the road, there's another white van. So he's kind of confused and he decides that he's going to stop and see what's going on. Well, as the bus came to a stop, 3 jackasses wearing pantyhose over their head, holding guns, come to the door of the bus and they get into the bus. They put the gun to Ed's head and told him, "You're going to go sit back there and we're taking the bus." So Ed didn't want to get shot, so he did exactly what he was told to do. He went and he sat back. One of the men with guns watched him. Another one of the men got into the driver's seat and started driving away. So the bus is being hijacked. And everybody is freaking out. Not so much the smaller children, like 5 or 6-year-olds, because they really didn't have any clue of what was going on. The new guy driving the bus drives them onto like a dry canal, and there Ed saw that there were 2 more white vans. So all 27 passengers were escorted off of the bus and into these 2 white vans. Once everybody was in these 2 vans, they started driving. They drove almost 11 hours and about 100 miles away to a quarry. Once they parked the vans, they removed all of the people out of the vans and started walking them down a path. Once they came to the end of their journey, Ed said that he noticed there was this huge, like, moving truck, but it was the ground was dug out and the moving truck was set into the ground. And one by one, these 3 jackasses were putting all 27 people into this moving truck through a hatch and at the top of the truck that was still exposed above ground. Once everybody was in, Ed said that they started to realize that there was quite a bit of stuff in this moving truck. There was lots of dirty mattresses, a few broken bed frames, a few totes that were filled with very little food and water. And then they heard the hatch close. Once the hatch closed, the hijackers put very heavy objects on top of the hatch so that if they were able to try to escape, that they couldn't, because the hatch would be being weighed down. Everybody in the truck is kind of starting to freak out at this point. Ed is internally going nuts, but he's trying really hard to keep all these children as calm as he possibly can. And while he's trying to keep all these kids calm, they start hearing dirt being dumped on top of them. So now they're really freaking out. I mean, they're being buried alive. One of the older children, who I believe he was 14 years old, he stood up and he said, "You know what? I'm not doing this. If I'm going to die, I'm at least going to try to escape. I'm not just going to go down without a fight." So a few more teenage boys stood up with him. Ed stood up and they took all these mattresses that were just laying everywhere and they started to put them one on top of each other and kind of tower them up to the top hatch. Once the tower was built, the boys climbed to the top and they used a piece of wood from one of the broken bed frames to try to pry open the hatch at the top of the truck, not knowing that there was something heavy on top of them. Everybody started to get extremely tired. It was hot in there. It was hard to breathe. Everybody was just feeling super drained and sluggish. But they all decided, we're going to give it one more try. And at that point, they realized that the roof was starting to cave in on them. So they got back up there and they did manage to pry open the hatch just a little bit. So they kept going and kept going and kept going, and they got it open. So Ed started shoving all these kids out the top hatch of this truck. Once outside of the truck, everybody was so excited that they got out. They're alive. They're fine. They weren't in there for too long, but they were extremely exhausted and dehydrated. But Ed got them all together and they started walking to try to find anybody that could help them. After a little ways of walking, they reached a small guard shack. And they went in and they told this guy exactly what happened. The police in Chowchilla were notified and the kids and everybody was safely transported back to Chowchilla and the investigation would begin. Police started their investigation with anybody who had access to this quarry because their train of thought was, okay, if somebody had enough time to dig out this giant hole and put this huge moving truck into the ground, they had to have a lot of access and possibly at different odd times of the day because that would create a lot of noise, right? So they started questioning the owner of the quarry. And then that moved to questioning his son, Frederick Woods IV. And while they were questioning him, the whole story started to unravel. Frederick and his two friends, James and Richard, who were brothers, they fell into a lot of debt. So with trying to get themselves out of debt, they decided that they were going to kidnap a bunch of children because they're vulnerable, they're easy to push around and control, and they're very valuable. They were going to kidnap these kids and ask for ransom. They were going to try to get $5 million for the children that they were planning to kidnap. So they set up this plan, they kidnap all these people. But once the kids and Ed were inside of the moving truck in the ground, they tried to call the city and the police department to demand their ransom of $5 million. But because they kidnapped so many kids, all those kids' parents were continuously calling into the police station. So it pretty much clogged the phone lines. So the kidnappers weren't even able to ask for their ransom. So they decided that they were going to wait till the next day. But unfortunately, that didn't go very well because they looked at the news and they realized that those people had made it out. All those kids and Ed made it out of that truck and they were safe. So screw your plan. You can't get your ransom now. So once the police figured out exactly what happened, they charged all three of these men with ransom, robbery, and kidnapping. They all pled guilty, and they were given life sentences with the possibility of parole. In 2012, Richard was released, and in 2015, his brother James was released. But unfortunately for Frederick, he was the mastermind behind this, and he never got released. I think that they got exactly what they deserved. I'm super happy that all these people were able to survive. Ed, the bus driver, he went on to become a local hero, as he should. Most of these children were mentally and emotionally fine after everything that happened. A lot of them did have to go through counseling and stuff, but most of them are living happy lives now. Thank you guys so much for joining me for today's story. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, come back, chit chat with me. In the comments, let me know what you think about this case, or let me know of a case that you would like me to look into so I could possibly cover it in the future. I'll see you guys later. Bye!